All right, it is officially 1 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get this My Hero Academia reaction underway, shall we? Yo, peoples, Kyushu92 here, and welcome back to yet another chapter reaction review of My Hero Academia. Lastly, we left off, we saw the full-on conclusion of the fight between Toya and Shoto. Then we saw Spinner, who has been augmented with quirks from All For One, as he's rampaging, saying like, there's absolutely no way that Spinner could lose. And then it finally cuts to All For One, who's face to face with Endeavor. So saying like, okay, so as he's trying to play mind games with Endeavor, like saying like, it looks like you tried to put all this on your son. That is so like you. You know, like trying to do reverse psychology and be like trying to play mind games with Endeavor. So now we get to see what happens in today's chapter, chapter 354. Oopsie daisy. And then it cuts to someone saying, All For One has one glaring weakness. And it's Hawk saying, his life support mask, if it wasn't obvious enough. The data from Stain confirmed that he took his whole rig with him during the prison break. It's clear that he can't function without it. And then Best Genius says, surely the man himself knows that better than anyone. And then Hawk says, standard practice would be to hit him with sheer numbers, except that this guy can steal away quirks. No way are we going to let him take out our valuable fighters and give himself a boost, says Hawks. And then it cuts to Endeavor and Hawks in the present day, cutting to them charging All For One as the narration of Hawks continues going, so it'll be me and number one, the strongest small team hitting him as hard as possible with our combos, as Endeavor flies towards All For One, and Hawks flies towards him with bladed feathers, and then they fly towards All For One, and All For One just sends a blade of air because he had different quirks go through his fingers, come through his fingers for him to use against the heroes, and he says, ignoring me? How rude. And he sends blades going, shooting towards Endeavor and Hawks, with Hawks saying, Endeavor! And then Endeavor comes up, and he engulfs the area with Hell Curtain! And nothing but fire. And then feathers go flying through the flames, but they're also on fire as well, with All For One saying, such obvious tactics, over and over. From you, the man who used to be too fast. As he says that as Hawks comes up right behind him, and Hawks tries to cut into All For One, but he uses a quirk in his thumb to block it completely. Some sort of sludge. Some weird sludge thing. Since Recovery Girl's efforts couldn't bring you back to your prime, your few remaining feathers need aid from prosthetic ones to bring you up to even this speed. And then Hawks just smiles at him as he says, so we're both crippled, huh? What is this notification? How dare you? So we're both crippled, huh? And then Hawks flies away as Endeavor comes down on All For One with a massive fist made of pure flame. And then it cuts to, I believe this is Hawks thinking, as he says, we can't have our fighters down below getting hit by the sort of shockwave that took out a chunk of Kamino. Keep the action close and finish him with point-blank attacks, all without letting him touch us. And it cuts to Endeavor engulfing himself in flames as he uses these giant fists of flame to hit All For One multiple times with a move called Vanishing Fist. And it shows Endeavor going all out, like his eyes are lit up and he's fighting against him. And then All For One says, the intense heat passes right through my hard flame fan. I can't reflect it with impact recoil. And Hawks won't give me an opening to strike back. And then All For One says, but Hawks, your timing doesn't quite match up. It almost seems like Endeavor's heart isn't in it. And then Hawks comes up behind him with Endeavor saying, "Let's keep this up, Hawks. We're landing damage on him. We're landing damage on him. He doesn't have anything like hyper regeneration." And then he tries to engulf All For One in flames. And then All For One continues with his mind games as he says, "Behold, Endeavor, everyone is fighting so hard to fulfill their role. Even the novices among them are focused on the battle at hand. So why does it feel like your head is somewhere else? Maybe because your masterpiece mopped up your failed experiment. Aren't you delighted?" And then Endeavor just says, "Shut up." And then Hawk says, "He's provoking you, just like he did to All Might and Camino. Think back." "You should know. For ages now, I've had my eye on your twisted longing for power. And the thing about me is, when I come across fertile ground, I can't help but sow seeds. You never did find Toya's body, did you?" And then Endeavor just stops because his flames start to slowly fizzle out around him. And then it cuts to Hawks thinking, "For real? He still had such a nasty card to play?" And then it cuts back even further as Endeavor was in a hospital bed. And it cuts to Hawks thinking about Endeavor and thinking about his own life as he thinks, "A man living on in order to atone can't just make a clean break the way I did. It's obvious. Right now, he could not have fought and beat Dabi. That's why I gotta be here to support him." And then Hawk screams, "Your duty right now is taking down All For One without delay, so keep a cool head." And then Endeavor just screams, "All For One!" And in that instance, Endeavor left himself open as All For One gashes his right side as he says, "Oopsie daisy." And he uses some sort of weird quirk that is like an amalgamation of like a face with like spikes sticking out of it and then made into like a mouth with teeth as well. He just slashes completely into Endeavor's side. I can't tell. Did he just take Endeavor's arm off? I think he took Endeavor's arm off. I think he took Endeavor's arm off. I think All For One just took Endeavor's arm off. Bruh. Oopsie daisy. And then it shows Endeavor bleeding from where I think his arm just got completely snapped off. I thought it was his side, but it looks like he got his arm. I could be wrong. And then Hawks just screams, "Endeavor!" And then All For One says, "Now for you. Can you dodge at this range? Nagant's replacement." As he prepares to hit Hawks at the range he's at. And Hawks thinks, "No, I can't dodge. But if nothing else, Endeavor can use Prominence Burn so I can keep him alive." No, he says, "But if nothing else, Endeavor can use Prominence Burn. So if I keep him alive." Wow, yo! As that's going on, Hawks is saved by a combination of Tokoyama and Jiro. She's riding on top of Tokoyami as he's flying using Dark Shadow, and they end up saving Hawks before he's blasted by All For One. And Jiro uses Heartbeat Wall as she's flying overhead and saves Hawks, and Hawks can only look on, and All For One can only look on as well, with her saying, "Well there, keep it steady, I'm not used to flying. I'm barely holding it together up there." And then Tokoyami says, "You must endure, Earphone Jack. And if you don't mind, keep your rear end still or risk flustering me." "Oh, shut up." Tsukuyomi and that Class A girl, keep back. You've got no place in this fight. He'll slaughter you." And then Tokoyami says, "I may be a poor substitute for Endeavor himself, but you and I are also capable of teamwork." And then it shows All For One saying, "The pesky gnats that swarm about One For All. In the old comic I used to read, though there were jobber characters who only existed so the Demon Lord could show what he was made of." And then Jiro looks at him and says, "How about you save that line until you've actually beaten us, All For One? You've got that? Yo! Looks like it's time for the students to shine." Oh, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Sensei Nam. I had to get it shaved. I shaved my mustache and my beard as well, so I am clean shaven all around. Pretty good chapter. It was like a pretty big it was a chapter that was mostly All For One trying to play more mind games and doing what he does best. And letting Endeavor have a moment of weakness was allowed. I can't tell. Did he actually take off Endeavor's arm? Hold on, let me look this up. Because I know there's a short synopsis and a long one. Okay. One of All For One's quirk is revealed to be Hard Flame Fan. It also reveals he does not possess the same hyper regeneration quirk as Tomura. All For One taunts Endeavor, revealing his role in Toya's disappearance, allowing him to catch him off guard and attack him. Earphone Jack and Tsukuyomi save Hawks from All For One's attack, ready to help them fight. So let me go back up here. Okay, so he sliced his chest. It doesn't say he took his arm off. It says he sliced his chest. Hawk cries out to Endeavor to focus on his duty to take down All For One, but Endeavor doesn't listen, crying out to the villain, allowing All For One to playfully catch him off guard, slicing his chest with a quirk combination. So he combined two quirks to be like spikes and then a weird amalgamation that allowed it to become like a fleshy mouth, and then he filled that mouth with the spikes combination and then allowed him to slash Endeavor in the chest. I thought he took his arm off, but it looks like he just got him in the chest, that's all. And then as Endeavor falls, All For One prepares to attack Hawks, asking Nagant's replacement if he can avoid his blast. Hawk tries to think of what to do to help Endeavor when suddenly Earphone Jack riding Tsukuyomi suddenly... It's not Tokoyama, it's Tokoyami. Sorry, Tokoyami riding Tsukuyomi suddenly appearing using her heartbeat wall to protect Hawks from All For One's air cannon. And All For One recognizes them as the gnats around One For All, likening them to the jobber characters in the old comics, who existed just to show how strong the Demon Lord was. Earphone Jack confidently responds that he should save comments like that until he's actually beaten them. Yeah. She's right, though. You don't need to be having these big moments of bravado saying, like, you guys are worms beneath notice, but you only say that after you've beaten people. Now, I understand if the character... If, like, say you can do that with video games and stuff like that. If you know for a fact that you're far more powerful than your opponent, you can jeer like that. But if you have no idea the capabilities of your opponent, and you think just because you simply having power is what makes you better than other people, and that's all you can really count on, then it's no wonder that he got upended by All Might, because he thought... Because think about it. That's that same type of bravado that All For One had when he thought he was going to be able to bring down All Might, when All Might was using up the last bit of One For All in his body, and then was reduced to his weakened state. That's that same type of mindset he had back in the Camino incident, when he had his final fight with All Might. And yet at the same time, that was also the final time that All Might and All For One had their fight, and he ended up losing to All Might. That's that same type of bravado. I have all this power. I'm going to beat you with all the combinations of the strongest quirks I have, a combination of the two. And he clashed with All Might, but still ended up losing. That's that same type of bravado he has here. For a person who has the foresight to create plans decades in advance, you would think he would still be cautious regardless of who faces him. You would think he would take everything into consideration, but given his stance on power beats everything, and as long as I have the power, then nothing can stand against me, that's how you get your hind part split. That's how you get your pockets ran. That's how you catch the smoke. That's how you just get beat down, way down to the ground down. That's how that happens. Being so full of yourself that you think nothing can touch you until something touches you repeatedly and then beats you down. That's power right there. You would think, if you're talking about All For One's power, he has tons of power. Really a ton of power. But he's too cocky because he's so used to his power being all he ever needed to see him through. Especially when it comes to confrontations with individuals, that's all he's ever thought of. And you would think for someone who's meticulous in him planning stuff that doesn't involve direct combat, you would think he'd be prepared for direct combat. Because when you think about it, All For One's plans, when it doesn't involve fighting, they go off without a hitch. But when it involves fighting, that's when he starts to falter. And his victory isn't always 100% assured. Because he's so bent and so sure of himself and his own power that nothing can ever beat him. Oh, if I keep taking all these multiple quirks, then no one's going to be able to combat me with them. Yet All Might did it multiple times. Like the users of One For All did it multiple times. So this is where, like, and he says, like, in the comics, there are characters that are only meant to be there to show just how powerful the Demon Lord actually was. There's characters who are meant to just be fodder to show how strong I am. But that same type of mentality is not going to work here because this new generation of students, they are not as feeble as All For One may have been used to 100 years ago. Reminds you of Kenpachi? Reminds you of Kenpachi, but unlike Kenpachi only... the difference between Kenpachi and All For One is that he just enjoys fighting. And he's learned to perfect his fighting to the point where he's so ridiculously strong, he actually chooses to hold back in order for him to enjoy fights. It's only when the opponent he's facing is serious and it's truly worth his time does he go all out. And then he destroys them. All For One is just so sure of his power. See, that's the thing about Kenpachi. The thing about Kenpachi and Bleach is that he's not so overwhelmingly confident in his own abilities that he just doesn't think that anyone is beneath his notice. The only people who if a person is not able to match with his strength, then he's not going to bother with you. It's not that he's confident in his own abilities. He just wants the person he's fighting to match him. That's the difference. Versus All For One sees his power as the absolute pinnacle and dismisses any notion of anyone even trying to reach him. That he sees anything that is beneath his power as worthless and easy to manipulate and easy to beat, and not even... Basically, he just called Tokoyami and Jiro gnats in comparison to his power. Like, you're here just to show how powerful I am. The difference between Kenpachi and All For One is that Kenpachi doesn't boast about his own strength. He's a person that just says, shut up and fight. All For One is one that thinks, I have all this power. You say whatever you want, do whatever you want. It's never going to matter because I'm going to beat you anyway because I know I'm that strong. That overwhelming bravado confidence, that's the difference between the two. So that because Kenpachi enjoys fighting. All For One, he fights, but most of his thinking goes into plans that don't actually involve fighting when you think about it. Because any other time he's been involved in fights lately, it's either been people underestimating him and he blows them away, or it's against a person who knows exactly who he is and he winds up getting beaten by them, i.e., All Might versus All For One. But we're just going to have to see where the chapters go from here as Jiro and Tokoyami join in the fight with Hawks against All For One. Now, whether or not we're going to continue this fight in the next chapter or we're going to cut to other fights that are happening right now, such as Asui and Uraraka versus Himiko Toga, or Bakugo and everyone else at UA's Flying Fortress versus Shigaraki, Bakugo and Mirko and everyone else there versus Shigaraki. That remains to be seen. We could be flip-flopping between different types of fights, or we could be focusing on this All for One versus Hawks, Endeavor, Jiro, and Tokoyami fight right now. It's anyone's guess at this point. But overall, I enjoyed the chapter. It just shows it, and during these conversations, All for One prides himself on being able to mentally manipulate others, such as bringing up past events that can greatly and mentally and emotionally affect a person in order for them to be stunted during a fight, which is how Endeavor got slashed in the chest. Simply because All for One is very meticulous and very careful about his words. He says particular things at a certain moment to see if he can get either a rise out of people, which worked on Endeavor, and see if he can get people to just completely go mind blank and drop their guard, which also worked on Endeavor. So even though Endeavor is slowly trying to work on bettering himself, he is still prone to emotional outbursts through manipulation, which actually plays to All for One's benefit, because that's what he excels at. And when it comes to a person who is not known for being calm under pressure, or calm in a sense of being able to think every action through, Endeavor is probably his worst matchup. Because he's still feeling like he's got to atone for losing Toya and all the things that have happened, and then his history getting out there in the open. He's still trying to atone for that, but he's still not any better than he was when he was up and coming. Like, he wants to be better, but he still has many leagues to improve. And this chapter just shows you that he's still got a long way to go in order to rein his own emotions in for the betterment of everyone. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been dropped like he was. But that's all I got to say about this chapter. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what the next chapter holds. All I can say at the end of the day is hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed what you saw here today, then like, subscribe, and maybe even consider becoming a member, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later peoples. Now it's time to react to One Piece, and then I'm just gonna chill for the rest of the day and eat me some smoothie Skittles. Oh, that reminds me, I gotta try out these Everlasting Gobstopper Chewies as well. All right, I'm out.